Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at something I haven't touched on yet on this channel, and it's a bit underrated in terms of actually winning a fantasy game, winning a fantasy championship, and that's defenses. I know a lot of people really don't give too much thought to what defense they slot in. They just look for the green matchup icon on ESPN or Yahoo, but streaming a solid defense and picking the right defense to play in important weeks of the season can actually be the difference between you winning and losing a matchup. So today I've gathered about 6 defenses, 2 I think that are useful to stream in both weeks 15 and 16, 2 for just week 15 and 2 for just week 16. This doesn't include the obvious guys like the Ravens, the Steelers, the Rams, who if they're somehow still out there, definitely go pick them up, and the other really solid defenses. This is more people that are going to be out there on the wire, maybe not super low ownership, but definitely guys that if they're out there, you want to go pick them up and start them this week and next week for your playoffs. Before we hop into the defenses themselves, I just want to go over the 3 criteria I use when evaluating and picking a defense I'm going to stream. The first 2 are pretty close in terms of importance, while the third is a step down, but I still think it's something to look at and consider when you're making a decision like this. First up is the actual quality of the defense. If you're a terrible defense, I'm likely not going to stream you. There could be certain exceptions, like the Seahawks last week against the Jets, but even then I was skittish because that defense isn't great, really. They're pretty bad. Second up is strength of schedule, the strength of the opponent you're facing. That's pretty important as well. If you're playing a really hard matchup, you're a really good defense, kind of cancels out, might give you a middling week. But if you're a fine defense and you have a really easy matchup, that might be something I look to target more. And third is home or away games. I just tend to favor the same thing with like kickers, really. Defenses that are home, I just feel like they play a little bit better. I know without fans in a lot of places or limited fans, it makes it kind of harder to make that a factor, but I feel like defenses at home is just generally the way to go. No travel, no nothing like that, no fans against them, just works out better. So moving on to the defenses that I think are suitable options for both this week and next week. First off, we have the Cleveland Browns. Quick cons that both the games are away. However, they are the Giants and the Jets to spoil, so there's really only 1 week of travel, and the travel really isn't that bad. They're a fine defense. I know that they just got kind of cooked by the Ravens and Lamar. Kind of want to consider an outlier because the Ravens bring such a unique attack, although certain teams have started to figure it out. But they did have a lot of players hurt, and if a guy like Denzel Ward comes back, they will be in a much better spot. So like I said, they have the Giants and the Jets, who are 28th and 32nd in fantasy points allowed to opposing defenses. 2 top 5 matchups. Each of these teams are allowing about 3 sacks a game. And when you have Myles Garrett, who's arguably Defensive Player of the Year, I can see him hitting 3 sacks in both of these games by himself. He's that dominant, he's that good, and these offensive lines just can't handle him. They are 7th in the league for turnovers forced with 20, over 1 a game. The Jets have allowed 17 turnovers, while the Giants have allowed 20. So you're probably going to get 3 or 4 sacks, turnover, maybe 2 against these teams. And the offense are just really not that good. They're both handicapped. The Giants are operating with below 100% Daniel Jones. It's clear to see. And if they don't have him, they have Colt McCoy, who is better than an injured Daniel Jones, but really not by much. And then the Jets are the Jets. They just redefine the term incompetence on a week-to-week basis. The offense has slightly more talent, but they just can't ever do anything with it. They played the Seahawks and scored a whopping 3 points. I know they've been better in recent weeks, but still, very bad offenses, very great matchup, very solid defense. This is a defense you can ride to about 10 to 12 points a week and maybe put you over the edge when it comes to winning that championship. But next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals, who in terms of when you think of big-name defenses, you really don't think of this team, but they are very low-key, top 12 in both yards and points allowed. They are at home for both of the remaining weeks, which I consider a plus, like I said. They are playing the Eagles week 15, who are a bit unpredictable, given that Jalen Hurts is now the starter. And then the raggedy-ass 49ers, who at week 16, they're out of the playoffs. There's nothing to play for. Don't think we'll see Kittle back. Definitely don't think we see Jimmy G back. They might just be trying to clear out the season without getting anybody seriously hurt in a worthless season. It's a loss for them. These teams are 27th and 26th in terms of points allowed to opposing defenses, so both, I believe, top 7 matchups. The Eagles have 23 giveaways on the year, nearly 2 a game, and the Niners have allowed 25, which is essentially 2 a game. Both teams are bottom 4 in terms of giveaways allowed to opposing defenses. There are 18 forced turnovers this year for the Cardinals, so top 13. Really not great, but not below average. So they're going to force probably 1 to 2 turnovers in this game. They're not the best defense in terms of quality. I think they are a step down from a team like the Browns, but they're not bad, and they're a kind of under-the-radar option moving forward if there's really no defenses left and you want a team you can trust the next 2 weeks. Moving on from that, we're going to pivot to defenses that are just for this week and this week only. First up, I have the Bills. They're facing the Broncos with Drew Lock, and I know he's coming off a pretty good game, but we can't forget that the entirety of this year, Drew Lock and this Broncos offense has looked absolutely terrible. It is a road game, which is a minus, and the Bills' defense is roundabout average in terms of points and yards allowed, but the value here comes in what they can do with turnovers. Last week, they scored a defensive touchdown, and they are 4th in the league with 21 forced turnovers, and the Broncos lead the league with 29 giveaways, nearly 2.5 a game. The Broncos are also allowing the 3rd most points to opposing fantasy defenses, and I can honestly see the Bills clocking in at about 13 to 14 points this week, getting a pick or two, probably turning one of them into a touchdown, maybe getting a sack or two against this Broncos offense. I think they can come in, dominate, maybe not hold them to a shutout like some other high-quality defenses would, but I think the value you can get off of potential turnovers here is really what makes this matchup appealing. On the back of that, we have another AFC East team, not the one you're thinking. I'm going to say the New England Patriots. It might seem a bit weird, but just give me some time. Tua is going to be likely without Mike Gesicki. From what I've heard, that injury is definitely not good, and more likely than not means the end of his regular season at least. And Tua's top 2 wide receivers are going to be injured, with both Devontae Parker and Jakeem Grant suffering lower body injuries this past week. And above everything else, kind of above stats, it's just that Bill knows how to stop a rookie quarterback. We saw it earlier this year with Justin Herbert. They got blanked, which is incredibly impressive considering just how good this Chargers offense has been. Despite shoddy play calling, they know how to score, they know how to put up yards, and they still got blanked by this defense, which has taken a step back clearly from last year. Now, with that, Flores and the coaching staff in Miami is definitely better than what exists in Los Angeles, but that doesn't change the fact that Bill Belichick's track record against rookie QBs is just sensational. They're 10th in yards allowed and 7th in points allowed, and they have 19 turnovers on the year. J.C. Jackson is an absolute stud. He's at like 7 picks so far. I believe he leads the league. If not leading, he's second. He is incredibly good in terms of making plays happen. I can definitely see this game going. Tua really struggles. I don't think we see him get pulled, but it is a possibility here with just how good Belichick can be. I think he forces Tua into a 2 or 3 turnover game. Don't think we see a forced fumble, and we could even see a touchdown from them, even though I don't think it's likely. So the Dolphins are an above-average team, but I think what Bill Belichick can do in terms of scheming up a game plan against rookie quarterbacks makes this a very, very under-the-radar streaming matchup for you guys. Moving on to defenses you can use just for Week 16, I'm starting off with the desperation play. This is break glass in case of emergency. There's literally nobody left. I'm considering the Houston Texans. It is very clearly a desperation play, like I've said, and they are not a good defense. I know I said that's something that's really important, but this is just a situation where if there's nobody else out there and you just need the best of a bad situation, I'd roll with the Houston Texans. They're at home. They have the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bengals are the second best matchup in terms of points allowed to a fantasy defense out of anybody in the entire league. They've had 22 giveaways on the year and are rolling with Brandon Allen, who, to put it lightly, sucks. They do have offensive weapons, but I believe they're a bit banged up. Gio Bernard is getting benched for next to no reason. And I just don't think that offense is very competent in terms of actually being able to move the ball. The Cowboys just stifled them. And that defense is tragic. It's providing hope if you really need this team to come up for you in Week 16. I said the Bengals had 22 giveaways. The Texans have a whopping 8 forced turnovers, so under 1 a game, closer to half a turnover a game. You might not get anything close to 12 points from them. You might get 8, which isn't great, but if there's no other options out there, you'll take 8 rather than 2 or 3. And going on from that, we have pretty much the exact opposite of the spectrum, a really good defense, Chicago Bears. Despite having a rough few weeks, the defense has picked up without having to be in the field constantly because Mitch Trubisky can actually, hopefully, lead sustained drives on offense. When this defense gets time to breathe and relax a little bit in between drives and don't have to rush out there every minute, they're actually a pretty damn good unit. And they have the Jaguars this week. And although it is on the road, I'm feeling a nice game from the Bears. Jags are a top 12 matchup for defenses and points allowed. James Robinson himself can hit a few of the yard thresholds you need to lose points, but as a whole, this team is just dysfunctional. They may or may not be rolling out Gardner Minshew. It depends on how much they still have to lose to secure Justin Fields in the draft. They really don't have that many offensive weapons outside of James Robinson that consistently do anything. DJ Chark's all over the place. Laviska Shenault's all over the place. Chris Conley all over the place. It's kind of a mess outside of James Robinson. And the Jags have also given up 21 giveaways on the year. Bears have 15 takeaways, and the Jags are allowing 2.5 sacks, right around the ballpark of what the Bears are averaging. They're also top 10 in both yards and points allowed. I can see this being a game where the Bears are still, they win this next week, week 15, and are trying to scratch and claw their way into contention, try and secure a wild card spot, and they batten down the hatches and deliver an ass beating to one of the worst teams in the National Football League. I think it can be a strong performance from the defense. Might see a few sacks, hopefully a turnover like always, and I think they can really produce for you in that championship round. Over these next few weeks, we're rolling out the Browns, Cardinals, Bills, Patriots, Texans, and Bears. First two both weeks, second two week 15, and last 2 week 16. And that's going to be it. That's all I got today. Should have a tight end video coming out. I know defense is a position that not a lot of people care about, and it's not the most exciting video to click onto, but the value a good defense can bring you is often understated. I know last year at the Patriots is a bit of an extreme example considering they were dropping 25 a week, but that difference between 4 or 5 points from a defense and 11 to 12 can be the deciding factor in you winning or losing a playoff game. Stuff like that is important, and when you're at this point of your fantasy season, every single potential point matters. You cannot afford to slack off on one of the positions, even if you feel like it does not matter. Picking the right defense, as I've said, can be the difference between winning a whole lot of money, winning very little money, or winning no money. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about, winning that money and winning that championship. So that's going to be it, guys. See you.